Hi, this is part 5 of the Caregiver Permanent Residency to Canada, even with no work experience, under the Home Care Worker Immigration Pilot Program. In the previous videos, we've discussed all of these with the tick boxes. So if you haven't watched those videos yet, just click on this comment right here for you to be redirected to the previous videos. Today, we'll talk about this, the requirement which is to be admissible to Canada. Guys, I know that we are all excited for this program because this is a landed PR program where if we are selected, we can become a permanent resident of Canada upon arrival. However, this is not available for application yet, so I'm just sharing these information with you. So if you're like me, who is an aspiring caregiver to immigrate, then what we can do in the meantime is to prepare our requirements. A lot of people are saying that this pathway will be available in 2027, so we have a lot of time to prepare the necessary requirements. So let's talk about what inadmissible means. Some people aren't allowed to come to Canada. They're inadmissible under Canada's immigration laws. A Canadian immigration officer will decide if you can enter Canada when you apply for a visa or an ETA or an electronic travel authorization, or when you arrive at a port of entry. There are different reasons why we may not let you into Canada, such as security, criminal, or medical reasons. Normally, if you're inadmissible to Canada, you won't be allowed to enter the country. If you have a valid reason to travel to Canada that is justified in the circumstances, we may issue you a temporary resident permit. Tapos daw, if you've committed or been convicted of a crime, you have a few options to overcome your criminal inadmissibility. So if you're someone convicted of a crime and you're still planning to go to Canada, just review this link right here. It's in the IRCC website. Penalties for driving while impaired. If you drive while impaired by alcohol or drugs, including MJ, you may be inadmissible for serious criminality. This means you won't be able to enter or stay in Canada unless we issue you a temporary resident permit, and you'll have to pay the processing fee for the permit, which is 240 Canadian dollars. And there's no guarantee you'll be allowed to enter or stay in the country. Now let's review the reasons why you may be inadmissible to Canada. You could be found inadmissible. It's saying here there are a number of reasons, such as security reasons, including espionage, subversion, attempting to throw a government, violence or terrorism, membership in an organization involved in any of these. You also could be inadmissible if you've violated human or international rights, including war crimes, crimes against humanity, and being a senior official in a government engaged in gross human rights violations are subject to international sanctions. If you've committed a crime, including driving while under the influence of drugs or alcohol, if you've organized a crime, including membership in an organization that takes part in organized criminal activity, people smuggling, or money laundering. For medical reasons then, if you have medical conditions that endanger public health, endanger public safety, or cause excessive demand on health or social services, some applicants are exempt. I actually have experienced magpa-medical for Canada because this was during the time na international students can still bring their spouses with an open work permit. Now, my husband is already an international student, and unfortunately, we were a part of the batch wherein the new immigration laws were applied, wherein I can no longer accompany my husband unless he is taking a master's degree. And since he is just taking a 2-year diploma course, I could not go with him with an open work permit. That's why I'm still here in the Philippines. And what I'm just saying is that the medical exam that I have experienced, there is a doctor who will check all your medical records. I think we did x-ray, a private room to ask about your sexual history, urine sample. I think that's for drug testing, I think. And then for x-ray, if your record is not that clear, if you have like tuberculosis or something, you'll need to treat that first, and then you have to come back to get your x-ray test done again, and that's when you'll be cleared for your medical. Because what it's just saying in here is that if you have any contagious diseases that could harm public health or public safety, then you could be deemed inadmissible for the visa. So it's a medical for financial reasons daw, if you're unable or unwilling to support yourself and your family members, you may be inadmissible. Misrepresentation, which includes providing false information and withholding information directly related to decisions made under the IRPA. Failure to comply with any provisions of IRPA, or having an inadmissible family member. What to do if you're inadmissible? Guys, it's just saying lang here na if you're inadmissible to go to Canada, and the reasons why you need to go to Canada outweigh the health or safety risk to Canadian society as determined by an immigration or border service officer, then that's the only time na you'll be given a temporary resident permit and be admissible to Canada. So it must be a really important reason that your need to go to Canada will outweigh the health or safety of the public. So if you're someone who might need a temporary resident permit, there are instructions here more about the ETA, the temporary resident permit, and if you've been committed or been convicted of a crime, this is the link right here. So including now both minor and serious crimes such as theft, assault, manslaughter, dangerous driving. And what can you do? Convince an immigration officer that you meet the legal terms to be deemed rehabilitated, or applied for rehabilitation and were approved, or were granted a record suspension, or have a temporary resident permit. There are a lot of details. What can you do? Deemed rehabilitation, individual rehabilitation, record suspension or discharge, temporary resident permit. So yan. Now that we're done talking about the requirements to be admissible to Canada, we're only left with the last one, which is actually the second part right here, to meet the specific requirements for the stream you apply to. So we'll discuss this in the next video.